The world of 1941 was a landscape of encroaching shadows, a time when the iron machinery of tyranny seemed destined to extinguish the light of human liberty forever. From the frozen steppes of Russia to the shattered streets of London, the Axis powers moved with a terrifying, mechanical precision that suggested the age of democracy was over. The dictators in Berlin and Tokyo looked across the oceans at an America they deemed soft, divided, and unprepared for the brutal realities of total war. They believed the American spirit was a relic of the past, a flickering candle easily snuffed out by the gale of their combined military might. But they had failed to calculate the sleeping power of a free people. They did not understand that when you threaten the American way of life, you do not merely provoke a nation, you ignite a furnace of industrial and moral fury that has no parallel in human history. The transformation was near instantaneous. Almost overnight, the vast civilian infrastructure of the United States, a land of farmers, shopkeepers, and factory hands, morphed into a singular, colossal weapon of war. In Detroit, the automotive capital of the world, assembly lines that once produced family sedans were torn apart and rebuilt to forge the steel bones of the B-24 Liberator. At the Willow Run plant, a miracle of engineering was born, a four-engine heavy bomber composed of over 1 million parts, rolling off the line every 63 minutes. To the German High Command, this was an impossibility, a feat of production that bordered on the supernatural. But for the American worker, it was the only acceptable response to a world in flames. This was the birth of the arsenal of democracy, a moment where the sheer weight of American industry began to tilt the scales of global destiny. In the Pacific, the roar of this awakening giant was first heard in the most unlikely of places, the deck of a pitching aircraft carrier in the middle of a storm. The Doolittle raid of April 1942 was a mission born of pure, unadulterated audacity. 16 B-25 bombers, land-based aircraft never intended to fly from the sea, roared off the USS Hornet on a one-way trip toward the heart of the Japanese Empire. They flew low, skimming the whitecaps of the Pacific, navigating by instinct and raw courage. When they appeared over Tokyo, they did more than drop bombs. They shattered the myth of Japanese invincibility. It was a psychological masterstroke that sent a shockwave through the Imperial High Command, forcing them into the strategic blunder that would lead them directly into the trap at Midway. The Battle of Midway remains the most stunning reversal in the history of naval warfare, a conflict decided in 5 minutes of absolute, terrifying destiny. The U.S. Navy was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing a foe that had not known defeat for centuries. Yet, through the brilliance of American codebreakers and the relentless grit of dive bomber pilots like Wade McCluskey, the tide of the entire war shifted in a single morning. As the Japanese carriers prepared to launch their final lethal strike, American SBD Dauntlesses rolled into near-vertical dives from 15,000 feet. In a symphony of fire and steel, 3 of the Emperor's pride, the Akagi, the Kaga, and the Soryu, were turned into molten wrecks. In those 5 minutes, the path to Tokyo was paved not with gold, but with the scorched remains of an empire's ambition. Across the Atlantic, the American resolve was being tested in the hedgerows of Normandy and the frozen forests of the Ardennes. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 was Hitler's final, desperate gasp, a massive counteroffensive designed to split the Allied lines and force a negotiated peace. At the center of this storm sat the town of Bastogne, held by the 101st Airborne Division. Surrounded, freezing, and outmatched in armor, the Screaming Eagles were given a choice: surrender or die. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe's legendary one-word reply, "Nuts," became the ultimate symbol of American defiance. It was the voice of a nation that refused to break, a declaration that no matter the odds, no matter the cold, and no matter the cost, the American soldier would not yield an inch of ground to the forces of darkness. While the infantry held the line on land, the silent service strangled the enemy from below. American submariners operated in a world of crushing pressure and suffocating silence, patrolling the deep to cut the lifelines of the Japanese Empire. These men accepted the highest casualty rates of any branch of the military, knowing that a single mistake meant a watery grave. Yet, their impact was total. By 1945, the Japanese merchant marine was a ghost of its former self, its ships resting on the ocean floor, and its war machines starved of the oil and iron it needed to function. The silent service had hollowed out the enemy's heart, proving that the American reach was as deep as it was wide.